Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. Hey Jason, you said it is not ideal to combine low reps and high reps in the same session, but what if I do low reps on my main lifts on all days? For example, on volume days I do 8x3. Would that still be a problem if I did higher reps on some accessory lifts? I don't think you really understand what we're talking about with concurrent periodization. It's not just about the rep ranges, it's the sort of energy systems and fatigue and everything that you are hitting. So even if you did a large amount of volume with triples, that's still not ideal to mix that with, say, really, really heavy work. Because if you can do 8x3 with something, you're not going super heavy, right? But you're also not going super light. Again, if you're trying to understand how this concurrent training works better, go look at, again, the way I've been training. Go look at my current workouts. That will give you an idea. Now, it sounds to me like if you're doing 8 sets of 3, that's a pretty moderate amount of volume on everything, right? So you're not really periodizing anything. You're just doing a lot of volume, right? So if you're adding some high rep stuff to 8x3, especially for your smaller movements, it's probably not a big deal because, again, you're already just training for volume at that point, depending on what you're doing. But I mean, if you're going for all-out max triples, it could be a problem. But again, it doesn't sound to me like you're trying to maximize training volume or anything else. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And I'm sorry if there's some confusion there. The reason we don't mix rep ranges is that it minimizes the amount of weekly training volume that you can actually do, right? Because it affects your recovery from workout to workout. So when you're doing things like that, like let's say you're doing 8x3 and then you're going to add a bunch of high rep accessory stuff, right? You're probably not trying to maximize your frequency, volume, everything else. You're just doing a fair amount of volume and you're probably recovering completely between. All right, but recovering completely between is not the way to maximize volume or maximize training response, particularly for non-novice athletes. And that's the difference that we need to understand there. This talk of periodization and this talk about mixed rep ranges and stuff, we are talking about non-novice lifters. So that's a big difference. That's something you need to understand, that this is a very context-dependent conversation when we're writing programs, because obviously a lot of novice lifters, look, I mean, I have people doing 5s, 8s, and then, 20 rep accessory movements, like little small movements in the same workouts on novice programs. But we're also not ever going really heavy either. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine for the novice. When we start having these nuanced conversations about mixing rep ranges, we are purely talking about maximizing total loads for the week and what you can recover from based upon not being fully recovered workout to workout, but still being able to maximize the rep range or the energy system that you are going to train on that given day, right? That's what we're talking about. And I know it's a very nuanced, very complicated topic, and it probably is one of the more complicated topics related to resistance training. All right, next question. Hey coach, I've been training for roughly 4 years. Unfortunately, the first 3 years I did all fluff and pump exercises because I was misinformed about proper training. Since finding your channel last year, I've now switched my focus to heavy compound exercises focused on progressive overload and high frequency. My question is, can I expect to put on some pretty good size switching to this proper style of training since I barely have a strength base? Or will the gains come very slow since this is already my 4th year of lifting and I've passed my noob gains? Hope this makes sense. Thanks. All right, will you get slower gains than you would expect to from this given point? Yeah, it will be a little slower. Because you goofed off and wasted your early years, yes, you will have a slower curve as a result of it. If you guys remember, Coach CJ Allen specifically talked about that when I interviewed him years ago, right? He had a specific talk about that look, there is a window for your novice gains, and if you miss that, you're not going to be able to do a novice program and replicate the exact speed you should have from the point that you're at because you wasted that early training adaptation. Now, does that mean you can't make really good gains? No, of course not. And here's my other question. So what's your other option? To just not train, or are you just going to give up? If you look and say, man, I can't replicate the gains I should have made from this point of me having this weak base, had I trained correctly, I'm just not going to train at all. Well, that's not an option unless you just want to be a lazy pussy and roll over and die. That's not an option. So what are you going to do? Just not train? You're just going to let weakness and cancer and osteoporosis and everything just overtake you? So what? You can't fix it. You messed up. All right, let's look at it this way. You guys who did fluff and pump instead of building your base your first year or two in the gym, you messed up. All you can do is do the best that you can now and make good progress, because your other option is to go back to the fluff and pump and make even slower gains, right? That's your other option. Or you could just not train. Well, I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and do the more effective training methods. And even if you make slightly slower gains than you should have, because you did squander that early adaptation, you're still going to make a hell of a lot better progress than you will doing the other silly stuff. So here's a question I would ask. You're in the situation that you're in, and you have the options of making the best of it that you can possibly do, or you can sit around crying over spilled milk. Which one are you going to do? No, you need to just accept that fact. Say, okay, here's a situation I've been. I've squandered some of my early novice gains, but if I train this way now, I will make the most progress that I could make in the situation that I'm now in. All right, I can tell you how winners think. A winner thinks, okay, I'm going to make the best of the situation. I now have an opportunity. I might have missed some opportunities, but I now have an opportunity to learn from my mistakes and to move forward the best that I can from the starting point that I'm in now, and not sit around worrying about what you messed up. The only time you need to worry about what you messed up is when it comes to giving other people advice, right? Because then you say to younger guys, hey, don't do this silly shit. And 90% of the time they aren't going to listen, because most young people are stupid. All right, let me state that again. Most young people are stupid. They're not going to listen. They're going to go do, strap-on destiny, silly-ass naturally enhanced, or they're going to go follow, whatever Jeff Sides curl program or whatever they're going to do, and they're going to be dumbasses, and maybe they'll learn something, and then, eventually they'll maybe get around to learning the correct stuff when they have some life experience and they don't get the results they want, and they'll be where you are. But if you can help a few of them along the way, hey, that's great. You can save them the trouble. But if not, don't worry about it. And for you personally, if you know you missed some of that window, don't worry about it. Do the best that you can with the most effective stuff that you have available to you from this starting point forward. All right? Because you can't change the past. And focusing on it will interfere with your progress. All right, next question. Hey coach, I've talked to my friend recently and asked him why he doesn't start strength training to build muscle. He said he doesn't want to because you're shortening your life whenever you are natural and not, and that the stress put in your body is not normal. What are your thoughts? Well, my thoughts are that your friend sounds like an ignorant, uneducated dumbass. All right. Okay. I'm going to give you my thoughts again. Your friend is an ignorant, uneducated dumbass who doesn't know anything about biology or human biomechanics or anything about research into longevity or health or anything else. He's a complete moron who needs to realize that his opinion doesn't matter because he's not educated. Now play this for him. All right. I'm going to play this for your friend. All right. Listen, Alberto's friend, you're fucking stupid. You shouldn't have an opinion on topics in which you have no knowledge and no education. All right? Your opinion is irrelevant. You need to ignore what you think you know and go do some basic reading and research. We know that strength training increases quality of life as you age, and it improves your lifespan. The scientific evidence in support of this is overwhelming, and not stressing the body and being more sedentary and lazy actually causes way more health problems than just about anything else you could do. The only thing you could probably do to make that worse would just be sit around eating junk food and smoking cigarettes and doing street drugs. All right? Resistance training improves longevity. It reduces cancer rates. It reduces Alzheimer's rates, dementia rates, osteoporosis rates. It even helps you maintain your height as you get older. It helps maintain the total size of your spine. People who resistance train and weight train actually maintain their spine size longer. In other words, you'll probably be a couple inches taller when you're 70 if you start resistance training. All right? Whoever told you this other silly nonsense is a moron who is uneducated, and if it was your medical doctor or someone else, your doctor clearly is not up to speed with the current scientific literature, and he's probably not looked at it for the past 20 years. The data is overwhelmingly in support for resistance training and strength training, improving not only lifespan, but more importantly, quality of life as you get older. It's going to make one hell of a difference by the time you hit 40. It's going to make one hell of a difference. And by the time people are in their 60s, it's night and day. This is not even a point of contention anymore. So anyone who's telling you otherwise is completely ignorant. And so ignorant that it's the level of absurdity and the level of ignorance for someone to even state that in 2019 blows my mind. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.